Off and running. It's 5:01 and we had a very
5:01.
crucial delay.
Yeah, very crucial.
All right, welcome everybody for the work session for the budget for our 2025 proposed budget. I turn the floor over to Ms. Beauregard.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. This is our first budget work session. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Moyers, who will walk you through the PowerPoint that is in front of you this evening. Of course, yell out any questions you have, and then we'll obviously record any questions you have tonight that we need to answer and get back to you on so that we can address them next week at the regular meeting, at the work session for with your regular council meeting. So with that, we'll turn it over to Ms. Moyers.
Okay.
Welcome.
You're going to see a couple review slides, a couple slides that answer questions that came up from council, and then a couple new slides of information I thought that it would be helpful if you knew. So just a reminder, our overall proposed budget is $148,269,045, and this is a decrease from FY24 of about 3.6%. And that is mainly due to we had the crossing water and sewer projects in the water and sewer fund in the FY24 budget, and we don't have projects that big in the FY25 budget. The general fund is at $73,230,288. That is a 4.9% increase over the FY24 budget, or $3.4 million. So this is the slide on the schools. The funding formula is in place. Their contribution from the city will be increasing 8.1%, which equates to $1,286,439. Their budget right now is increasing by 1.8 million over FY24. And they are about 82% of our general fund debt. I know last week I think Mark said it was 82% of our total debt. It's 82% of our general fund debt.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yes,
Sorry,
it
'cause
doesn't
I
include
couldn't-
water, sewer, none of those. It's general fund debt.
Okay, that makes sense.
They still don't know their state revenues. We have a template that we've been using from the House and the Senate, but until the governor approves it, we do not know what revenue the schools will be getting from the state. So I thought this might be helpful for you to see. It's our top 5 revenue changes and our top 5 expenditure changes. So for revenue, we have real estate on public service increasing 200,000, personal property 207,200. We are expecting a 6% decrease in actual personal property revenues, but we were under budget for FY24, so we still get to raise the budget by 207,200. Sales tax, we're moving up by 350,000, and interest income of $505,000. Real estate 653,063, and meals 675. In the expenditure column, our biggest increase, of course, is the schools, the $1.286 million. 5 sheriff deputies at 295,235. That is with 2 starting in July and the other 3 starting in January. 3% COLA, that equates to 682,500, and that's just on the general fund only. Outside agencies, 108,819. Regional jail, 131,851. And then the deputy engineer position for 137,074. So Mr. Claffey, you had asked about interest income. So I wanted to prepare you some slides just to walk you through that. So in August, we opened an account with the Virginia Investment Pool, and we put $45 million there. That is currently at 46.3, earning about 5.47% interest.
Wow. Outstanding. We
didn't want to put all of our money there, so we opened a Truist money market account that we would put 20 million in, earning between 3 and 3.5%. And then the Truist operating account, which is our checking account, we have about $8.8 million in, between 1.5% and 2%. Now the US bank accounts and the LGIP at the bottom, those were opened way before I took over. Those are not new. And they have, the LGIP is just for schools and a school bus reserve. The US bank, There's some for general fund, water fund, sewer, and environmental. So through March, this equates to about $2.5 million. And I wanted to show you who the biggest earners were, with the biggest being the city's CIP fund, because that's where we have a lot of our ARPA money sitting, waiting to be spent, and CIP money. So we're going to earn about 660. I think we're going to get close to about $1 million or a little over, because we didn't appropriate our 2023 or 2022 interest either. So that accumulates, and now we can appropriate it probably in our next budget amendment. We can decide if we want to put it in a particular project or if we just want to put it in undesignated for now.
So the whole 2 million?
It's going to be a little over $1 million in interest for the CIP fund.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we can have that discussion tonight or later on. General fund is about 576,000 through March. We did appropriate some of that on the second budget amendment. We did 3 PD vehicles. We put money aside for the wharf tree replacement. We funded the crossing marketing plan that was not in the FY24 budget. And we put money aside for the entrance corridor overlay work. We still will have a few $100,000 that has not been appropriated. So the water fund, the sewer fund, and the stormwater fund, they all have fund balances that are earning interest. Those have not been appropriated for anything. So what will happen with those amounts is they'll just fall to the fund balance and carry over, and we will use them for future capital projects.
Does the interest go back into general fund, or does it have to remain in the respective account?
It remains in the respective accounts where that money is attributed to. So what we do is we run a trial balance for the cash balances in each of these funds, and then we allocate the interest based on how much money is in each fund. The school CIP is through March, about 190,000. And what they're using that for is they're going to purchase 2 activity buses. I believe they already have them on order. The education fund doesn't have much interest at all, because a lot of their federal grants are reimbursement based. So sometimes they run a negative cash balance. So they don't earn much interest. And then there are a few others like the environmental fund, the health fund, the debt fund. They're earning interest too, just not significant amounts. These are your top earners. And we didn't want to budget the same amount in FY25's budget that we're earning this year. We want to leave room in case rates dip down, because of course our budget is mostly personnel. And if you have a dip in interest rates, you certainly don't want to have to lay somebody off. So we did about half of what we think we might earn. So we can drop down to 3% and 4% and still be okay. So the budget includes 6.73 million of debt sinking fund. Yes.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Jesse. The 2.5 million through
Mhm.
March 31st, was that from last March?
It started in July.
That started in July.
So I did
wasn't an
this
annual.
fiscal year so far, fiscal year to date.
Thank you, sorry to interrupt you.
So we'll have about $6.73 million of debt service in FY25. 5.6 is being transferred from the general fund. And then the additional 1.2 million will come out of the debt service sinking fund balance. And I'm going to walk you more through this when we get to the courthouse project. I have a few more details on that. And I'm going to show you the debt affordability that the Davenport did for us this week. So I know you were asking about retirement of certain debt issuances. This is our general fund debt. We have 2 issuances outstanding, the Staunton High School debt and then the 2021 refunding, which included multiple debt issuances. So they are highlighted in the yellow color, or the years in which they will mature, and then the principal debts associated with that will fall off during that time.
What is that number in the far right column? 43,928,000
That's
total?
That is school debt.
that's
And so it includes the high school, McSwain, Ware.
Where?
Yeah, you have to add those together to get your total school
Oh,
debt.
all right. So it's almost 44. Yeah, that's the
Mhm.
44 figure.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And well, we would be, never mind. That's
So this is a reminder slide that we have in the budget, a 3% raise for employees starting July 1st. For all employees, it's about $800,000.
But that's just The city side, that's not the school, right?
No, that is not the school side. That is just city
Gotcha.
employees through across all funds.
Have they said what they plan on doing?
They plan on doing 3% July 1st.
It's the same.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, by all means.
Right now, we have in the budget a 10% increase in premiums. It's hard to tell at this point because we won't actually get that number until like September.
That's your medical.
Yes. So this is a repeat slide, I believe, from last week. CIP, the 2025 CIP, we have to have $2 million of FY24 carryover to fund that. I feel like that's going to be possible. The one we're going to have trouble is FY26 CIP, because we're budgeting in meals and sales tax and lodging a lot closer to what we're actually getting. So that carryover balance will be shrinking significantly. So we'd like to get to a point where we work CIP back into our operating budget. It's just hard right now. So we have about $1.6 million in requested positions that we are not able to fund. I have a slide that will go through those in a second, and $1.4 million in operational and equipment requests that we were not able to fund. Like FY24, we have again budgeted $300,000 for attrition savings, knowing that our positions will not be full the entire year because usually people leave and it takes a few months to replace them. And you get to realize some attrition savings. So we're doing that upfront. And the 1.2 million, that's the debt fund sinking balance that we have to use to fund the FY25 general fund debt payments. So these are our unfunded personnel requests. The sheriff had requested 12 positions. We approved 5 for FY25, with the 2 being in July and the 3 being in January. We have another 1.5 that we're going to recommend in the FY26 budget.
Another one, what now?
1.5
1.5 personnel.
FTEs,
Mhm.
Yeah.
FTE.
So on that, and he asked for 12
Yes,
and you approved 5. This is above what he currently has.
yes.
And he is currently manning 2 courtrooms as it is.
Yes.
What's the difference?
Door security, there is a control room that will monitor cameras, help with transportation, because Augusta County helps out with our transportation now to our JDR courts. Those are the main reasons.
I think the biggest unknown is we've never operated our own JDR court before. So we're gonna have to kind of see how this goes. And when we open, and we'll have to make adjustments probably, but there's just a lot of unknowns still in
No, I
terms of,
get
yeah,
it.
but
I get it. I would just say bunches, say, hey, we'll do 4, and then if we need, we can add. I'm just,
yeah.
we're
Make it
trying to save
12.
money, and that can go across all departments. Do you go ahead and, I'm being picky. I mean, we do that at the hospital too. I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
do I need 6? Well, let's do 4. And then if we need some more down here, we can bump it up here. And
Well, that
I'm
could
just
very,
putting it out
that
there.
could very easily work its way into the 300,000 of transition payroll. It's not
Yeah.
budgeted, but it's not spent.
So the next position is the Commonwealth Attorney's position. That would be that his office, he said he would need in his office if we were to do the Pathways program. The fire department requested 7 positions that we couldn't fill. 1 is the emergency coordinator, 3 battalion chiefs, and 3 firefighters. The library requested 2 positions that we weren't able to fill. The commissioner of revenue had a request for a full-time position. The state started funding that position again. It was cut, I think, in 2008. They started funding it again in December, except the state only covers 50% of a $30,000 salary. So the state covers 15,000, and the balance of 60 plus thousand would be the city's dime. So
And I'm going, what about, I was going on the sheriff's department, what about the police department? how are they? I know that they were really struggling there for a while. And when I was talking to a few officers, it seemed like most of the shifts actually were full. Now, the one officer that I talked to said his shift and that they were struggling, you know, that they were down.
I think the chief
two.
just said just yesterday, they have 4 vacancies right now, which is really
Yes, and
not
he-
that much.
he
Yeah,
thought
that's
that was not too bad.
Exactly.
So
So I was
they're
heartened.
doing
when
a
he-
lot better.
Yeah, I was heartened when he told me that they had actually come back up and it only seems like one maybe shift was down some.
Yeah,
So,
so-
It's
he
fully
said-
staffed not that long ago, but I know things change.
oh, yeah.
Often.
And the last item on our personnel list is the hazardous duty multiplier that the fire department and the police department are requesting. We have not been able to work that into our budget. Once you commit, it's in there every year. So just know that as a request that is unfunded at this point. This is just a list of the vehicles and equipment that were requested that we weren't able to fill. Some of these you see on there every year. If you have any questions, you can let me know about any particular piece of equipment.
Just
or-
go, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I'm a slow processor. So okay,
Nope.
if we can go back to the previous page for just a second, because it sounded like what you said was very important. You said, once you hire somebody or once you fill these positions, you can't go back. You can't.
Oh, that is on the
No, no,
hazardous
the
duty.
hazardous
That's for
Yes.
their retirement.
That was the
I see.
multiplier,
Okay,
the last item.
Yes.
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. I missed that piece. Thank you.
and like, again, it was the officers with how, like, for instance, sheriff's department, 2 vehicles, you weren't able to apply. How many did they get
Go to the next page.
at the next?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
you're talking
interesting.
about the operating.
The sheriff's office did
unfunded.
not get any new vehicles in this budget.
Who didn't?
They did not get any new
All right,
vehicles.
and
in
is
this
the
budget.
police too?
No, the police did not get any new
Yeah,
vehicles.
because I knew they had a few still
got a
sitting
couple
down there that
last
hadn't
year,
been
didn't they?
used and.
Yes, what we try to do is, if we have carryover funds up and above our CIP, that's one of our first priorities is to try to fund those PD vehicles.
Right.
It's just been hard to put them back in the budget because they were cut, I think, right after COVID and
Right.
it's just hard getting them back in there, like it's hard getting the CIP back in there.
Parks and Rec doing all right with their need? They're doing all right? Okay. Just curious. Don't push your luck.
The lovely new playground.
When was the last time the gym floor got redone?
I think we're trying to get one of these done in this year using maintenance money. I don't know if we've done it yet.
It's that high?
Chris, can you come up to the
park.
mic?
This is Park,
Because that's Booker T.
Oh.
Gypsy Hill.
At the
Surface.
Gypsy Hill Gym.
We just refinished the Booker T gym floor
is it?
last month. The Gypsy Hill gym floor has probably been 15 years since that was done.
Cause that floor gets a lot of use with voting and, you know.
It does.
And if we get to the end of the fiscal year and we still have building maintenance money left over in the parks area, we're going to revisit some of these projects to see if we can do it.
You do that in-house or do you,
We contract that out.
who do you all get, you know?
There's
Or
the
it's been so
firm
long.
that, a local firm did the Booker T, a local contractor. We would certainly give him another shot if we can do the Gypsy Hill gym.
So how much did Booker T cost?
It's a lot smaller. It was like 9. And we did the stage was an additional 3. So that's,
Do a good job.
did a great job. And that hadn't been done for 30 years probably.
Yes.
So it's big improvement.
Is John Lancaster Gypsy Hill? Is John Lancaster Gypsy Hill?
John Lancaster is Gypsy Hill.
Okay.
All those are Gypsy,
Okay.
except for the Booker T court. And resurfacing is basically repainting. It's not asphalt.
This is totally probably not in budget, but it reminds me going to work this morning in Gypsy Hill in front of the grandstand, you know, those big logs.
Bumper
whatever.
rails.
One of them had fallen. It was like one was off totally.
Okay.
And I worry about somebody's trying to sit or the other
That
side.
happens a
falling off,
lot.
whatever.
Cars
Okay.
bump into them and
Yep.
Yep. So,
yep, we'll check that.
okay.
And there's the rest of the equipment. And there were about it's about $165,000 of outside agency requests that we could not fund. The majority of that is for the CSB. We limited their increase to the 10% max. I forget what percent increase they were asking for. Was it 60 some percent?
Going from like 247 to 401 or something.
And so we limited to their increase to 10%, because it was hard to absorb all that. And that's because their state funding went up and we have a certain contribution level we have to make. And so we'll try to get there next
Well-
fiscal year, or the fiscal year after.
All right, so since we're talking about unfunded stuff, what is your projection at this time for the revenue overruns we're gonna have on our current year's budget? How much are we gonna have as carryover?
Right now, I think about 3 million, enough to cover our CIP.
Just three?
You want more?
I'm glad to see it's
You don't
coming
like
under-
more.
I don't like more. I'm glad to see it's coming under control.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, these are dollars that we have set aside that we haven't spent.
Yeah.
And we need to get this money into the system. And, you know, it doesn't do us any good to collect tax dollars from our citizens and then not
Not
invest
use
it, not invest it in the way we thought we were going to. So
And it's just been hard lately, like certain projects are coming in, the bids are coming in way over budget, or we don't get a bid, or
correct.
it's been
I
tough.
understand. And I understand that we're going to continue to have a tough time for another year because all of these localities are trying to spend ARPA money.
Yes.
And there is no such thing as a legitimate bid anymore. Anybody that's going to a government agency is jacking their bid up because they know we have
They
to
got
spend
money to
ARPA money.
spend. Yep.
And consequently, it's just bidding up services. I mean, things like paving, we can't get it done for what we should get it done, but it's tough. I understand. where
And
you're
that's
coming
one where we didn't get a bid at all.
from. I understand.
Still haven't, even with, put it
They haven't put it
several
together yet.
projects together yet?
We haven't rebid
Hasn't
that
been
yet.
rebid
Oh,
yet.
okay.
All right. Thank you.
So looking forward, this is a slide that we had last year that a lot of these are still relevant. Just want to remind you that the jail buy-in is going FY25 is the last fiscal year of that. So we are losing that revenue that we have been counting on in our operations in the general fund.
All right. So when you say the Harrisonburg buy-in is 656, does that get divided by the other
That
three
was-
remaining?
Nope, that is Stanton's share.
That's
What?
ours pure.
That's just
Yes.
us.
That is Stanton's
Oh,
share.
I was thinking that was gonna be split 3 ways.
I wish.
Oh, ouch.
I
Okay.
know.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
okay.
Of course, we have the final JDR court relocation and related debt service. We now know more about that, and there'll be a couple slides on that shortly.
Yeah.
The operating costs that we're starting to work into our FY25 budget, and then the rest of it will hit in the FY26 budget. The MS4 requirements, West End revitalization, Uniontown, greenways and pedestrian infrastructure, public safety and other needs, space needs, and future capital needs. So I want to talk about some CIP projects. A couple review slides. This is our general fund CIP plan for FY25. What you see here are mostly reserve type projects. We do have the 170,000 in there for the 911 panel upgrades. 350,000 replace the retaining wall and supported sidewalk along West Johnson Street. And then the network fiber for IT. We're going to start an IT equipment reserve, but not until we get these requested projects out of the way. We still have the 3 new funds that we set up in FY24 through that budget process at the 2023 1 cent real estate value rate. Those are, again, they're in there for FY25s. We have $100,000 for the Uniontown property surveys. 500,000, that is a VDOT reimbursable project. And we don't have those on the CIP, but we wanted to put it in there so that those residents know that we do realize that street is a problem and we will address that in FY25.
Okay, so the 287 in the three different categories there.
Mhm.
Where is that money this year? It,
We have just kept it in, it's in 24s and we just rolled it on.
In the capital
25.
budget, the capital budget. It's in the CIP.
It is the only
is it
CIP
getting-
transfer coming out of the general fund, are those three lines.
So is it getting the current high interest?
Yes, it's part of the CIP interest that we're earning. Yes,
So I understand the library is having a design study,
a space needs study,
a
yes.
space needs study. Ideally, because they haven't had renovations for a very, very long time. And there was a space needs study years ago and nothing was done with that space needs study. So I'm hoping that when that is complete, that incrementally, and I think we talked about this before, incrementally that with that money in that fund, upgrades can be made to the library with that money. And hopefully that will be something that will be kind of a quick turnaround. We were lucky, I think, to get the roof put on pretty quickly. And hopefully we'll see the changes in the library taking place. Again,
Yes.
we talked about it taking millions and millions of dollars. So clearly it's not going to be something that's going to be done all at once.
Right.
So
If we
like
continue
water,
with
yeah.
these three new reserves, we should have 2 to 3 years worth a reserve by the time the space needs is done for the library.
And if we could just keep going, thank you for asking the question, Steve. I mean, with the West End revitalization project or plan being done, is that the kind of thing that will be done incrementally? I mean, I guess we can't make these decisions now, but using funds available to implement some of the changes that would be needed.
Right.
That, or is this money, since part of our West End revitalization is to do the Chestnut Hills
Mhm,
court, you know, it's
mhm.
all part of it.
I have not counted any of this reserve in the courthouse renovation to this
Well,
point.
maybe not the courthouse, but maybe the grounds around it.
Correct.
Is that what you're
That's
saying?
what
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
I
We
would
talk
think
about
so
lighting
too.
as well and
Mhm,
Sidewalks and
Yeah.
all that sort of
Signage.
stuff. I mean,
yeah,
can't this be
That we-
considered to be part of it?
It could.
then you could see
guess.
some immediate
Because-
benefit.
And I mean, the other side of it is I want to borrow as few dollars as possible when it comes time for the JDNR court, so that we can do it in as few years as possible.
Yeah.
So if we have this type of money, it can do some of the peripherals so that we don't have to lump it into a giant
I
debt.
get that.
So then what
Don't-
happens to the revitalization in other areas of the West End?
Well, I
Because
mean,
this was something
is
that we
some-
set aside, not just for that, but for other areas of the West
But I
End.
think this is the linchpin of the whole West End revitalization program is there in that courthouse area.
Yeah,
Well,
but wasn't
Said
there
our
also,
intention.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Mark. You were
Wa-
already.
Wasn't there also some talk? We had some presentations about further down Beverly, creating some like islands down through there with trees or shrubs or something in my mind is telling me that. or-
That's, yeah, and that's what I had imagined this was for. I think the courthouse is the courthouse, you know, in that area and the grounds on it. I mean, personally, I saw this as more further down sidewalks and things like that, not on
Sidewalks,
the
yeah.
grounds.
Right.
Plantings, things like that to give visual appeal, the stuff the
Right.
city can do.
We also had $4.5 million in FY '24 for that property, including roof renovations and site work.
I want to talk a little more about that.
I wouldn't see this as going.
And I also
basically to
think
that.
too,
Well, I'm just saying, I don't want to make that debt too big by adding everything that's going to go on in the West End in here, just so that we have to borrow more money. I'm trying to
Okay.
keep that as reasonable as possible.
Okay. And I have a slide on debt
Good,
or
well,
maybe a
all right,
couple
we'll get
slides.
to it.
Well, there's
We'll get to it.
thoughts.
Yep. And then these are we did not have a funding source for these. So I'm going to talk about one of these very shortly. So this is a slide that I believe Adam asked me to put together showing our current reserves. And these are reserves that are like annual reserves that we have. The CAD and the Moxie there at the bottom, those are kind of temporary because they have an end date. So I separated them out so that you can see that they're not your typical annual reserve. I'll just give you a minute to see if you have any questions about these.
On the temporary reserve for the Moxie, we talked about broadening the scope of that particular reserve to be more of a public utility, public use
Like a
building reserve.
Parks and Rec facilities.
That would probably cover it. But yeah, I mean, just so we don't have it just so specific on that. I mean, we all agree that we want to do things to Moxie, but the scope of that has changed a little
And
bit.
if that is the consensus, we can definitely do that.
And you were going to present us with the design study and sort of piece that out and,
We got that report today. It just did not have enough time
Yeah,
to
no, it's
digest
fine,
it.
but
Yeah,
we'll-
Chris just got it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
better that we see that before we make,
Right.
be
before
able
we
to
figure it
talk
out.
about.
I agree.
I like the idea of either a recreational facility reserve or just even a community facility, a more general community facility reserve with the pool house and the bathrooms all coming in over budget. I mean,
Yeah, we got lots of needs.
We have a whole lot of aging.
Correct.
Heavy use facilities. The pool house is brand new to us.
That is one that's kind
It's
of
one
jumped to the
nasty.
top.
Yeah,
Jesse, all of the current balances, so all that 3.8 million would be part of what's gathering interest for us.
Yes. That in addition to the ARPA projects where we've set money aside, like the 2 fire trucks that we have in order, we have that 2 million sitting there gaining interest until they come, and I believe it might be the spring of 26 before they get here.
Jesse, that,
Getting interest for 2 years is.
that,
Sweet.
That is-
16.5 that we had currently, as in like the reserve,
Yes,
that we're trying to work towards 18 on that, that's part of the gaining interest?
Mhm.
Okay,
in the general fund.
I
Yes.
don't-
Right.
If you're talking about that, I hope that we can ixnay that going to 18. I dug out the budget from 5 years ago, and we were operating at a 15% reserve. And it was significantly less dollars because our city budget continues to expand every year with the personnel costs going up.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the number gets bigger and bigger. And we were talking $100,000 total budgets in the city of Staunton 10 years ago. And we were operating with a 15% reserve. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking $148 million budget.
Yes.
And we've pushed it to 16.5%. And I dare say, we have never tapped $1 of the reserve fund.
Mm-mm.
So with all these needs that we have in our community, the last thing we want to be thinking about is further expanding money that we're setting aside and putting in a reserve account that we never touch.
Never gets used.
I agree in principle, though, I mean, it was explained to me in the past as it improves our ability to borrow. And I'd love to know
We're not in
specifically
this
what it
game to
is.
borrow as much as we can. We're trying to borrow as least as
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah,
And I'll just remind you that the GFOA recommended is 16.67. So we're just right
there.
there.
okay.
We're there.
I mean,
And my point
nice to
is,
be a little bit above instead of a little bit below, but
I went and looked at the budgets from 5 years ago. Right before when I was running and I came on board, and they were operating at 15%.
and you're right, we would never touch it unless there's a catastrophe.
And here we went through COVID and never touched a dime.
That was magical money falling from the sky.
Well, it
during
was,
COVID.
but I mean, we also have 250,000 in another contingency fund that we,
And you had asked when we started that one, and this fund balance policy was started in 2011. That's when that was started and that 250 was set.
2011.
Mhm.
So we've had 250,000 sitting there in case we have a downturn in revenue.
And we have never touched it.
And we've never touched it. So my point is, money's hard to come by. We've got a lot of projects that need to be done in this city. And we ought to be using our money and not
Saving
sitting
it.
on it.
That's what you're talking about, saving it and
Saving it
Or
is not
is-
our job.
right.
I mean, we have reserves.
because it is some projects that need to be done.
Oh,
There's a
absolutely.
ton of
So,
projects.
yeah.
I'd like to have a
Well-
better understanding what having that reserve allows us to do, you know, from a credit standpoint or that. I mean, it's.
Our-
It
was
does look
explained
better when you're
briefly.
going through a credit evaluation, that
Our
you're more
credit-
financially stable.
Our credit is top notch right now. We have one criteria where we're not hitting it
We're hitting it now.
until we go to courthouse.
Nope, we're still gonna hit it.
Are we? Okay. All right,
Yes.
well, that's what we gotta get to, right?
Okay.
That's-
So I want to go over the pool house project. So when we put this one in the ARPA funding list, we thought that we would just make it a little prettier with paint, new flooring, new fixtures. And so when they went to do the design, they're like, oh, we recommend we don't do a full design on this building. Instead we do a preliminary architectural report because of the condition of the building. And so they have three recommendations with one, begin you renovate the existing building, and their estimate, of course, this is just an estimate, is about 1.4 million. Recommendation number two is that you build a new building, which would be up from the existing building. So in the year in which you decide to do this, you could keep the existing building open and operational while you're building this one. It would be less than half of the square footage of the existing building because the existing building is too big. We need about 2,200 square foot. And then the bare minimum, which would extend the life 5 to 10 years, is about $300,000.
Question.
Yes,
If, let's just say decided to build the new building, and that's gonna cost us 1,749,000, then once all that's done, what happens to the old building?
it would be demolished,
Gone.
demolished.
And what monies are in there? That's additional monies to tear that down, correct?
I think it's in their estimate, in estimate
So
number
that
two.
1,700,000 is inclusive of tearing it down.
Keep in mind, it's an
Okay,
estimate and we know
alright.
how those go these days.
All right.
So I've talked to a few staff. I went in and toured the building this week. And my recommendation, or I think it's a consensus of staff, is that we use our remaining ARPA funds to design a replacement building. And that we create the Parks and Rec Facility CIP fund using the interest that we have earned this year and that hopefully will continue to earn next year. And then that we talk about this again next year to see, is this still a priority? Or do we push it off a year or 2 years? So there was, and I know some of those things that I listed were kind of scary, but we did have our inspections department go over. And they have Parks and Rec has a punch list of things they need to take care of. And when I was over there, they were building a support beam under the steps and they repaired the concrete that was kind of chipping and falling off. So it's still safe to open this summer. And then our inspections department will be over there doing an annual checkup on it. So I feel like this is something that we can work toward using the interest that we're earning. And by the time we get there in FY 25, 26, maybe in 27, hopefully we'll have enough to do it. And hopefully the construction market will be cooled off so that it's not an overinflated price. So if you guys are in agreement, that's the way that we can proceed. If you don't want to, we'll have to decide what you want to do with the ARPA money that remains. Do we try to just put it toward the 300,000 of making the critical changes that we need to make?
So the estimate on the critical repairs for the 300,000 was it would last for 5 to 10 years.
Yes.
But it's still not accessible and it's still.
And it would still be
it's
nasty.
awful.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, yeah, I mean, it is kind of,
It
it
did
looks sort of
include-
like a
Still
World
be
War II
nasty.
pillbox.
Yeah.
Accessible at all.
It's
I
it's
just think it's a
70 years old
Band-Aid.
and it's
Yeah,
been-
I think it's a
been bad for
Band-Aid,
70
yeah.
years.
I agree with personally your recommendation, just
And it doesn't seem like we can get anything up and running fast. I mean, we're gonna have to
yeah.
have a
Take a while.
design and yeah.
And
it's
so
gonna-
that 1.7 million that you're seeing there, that includes design costs. So we're going to pay for that design out of ARPA. That's going to drop that some.
Good.
Of course, it's hard for me to believe estimates these days.
Correct.
Mhm.
Everything we've,
I know.
Hey, we
Some
were
of the-
surprised recently.
We were
Wild
pleasantly
and both
surprised.
correct.
One project.
Yeah.
I know, the most
the
important.
biggie,
The
the
most
biggie,
important
yeah.
one.
Okay.
That one.
Those,
Well, how
Yeah.
about show of hands here on the dais of, is everybody in favor of proceeding with the,
If you need time to think of it.
you want to
I
go
mean,
back to that slide, Jesse, with the
Um,
design?
I think it's an important asset we have here in the city.
Go one
oh,
more.
me too.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
One more.
so loved and used.
And that project would fall within ARPA's requirements, whatever.
Oh, yeah, it's already in ARPA, so to speak. It's just, we didn't do the full design because they took a look at the building and said, we recommend just doing the PAR right
All
there.
right,
Yes, Gypsy is one of the jewels of the city and it's worth having something
absolutely.
better.
So are you in favor of new construction versus trying to remodel
Yes.
the
Yeah, I
existing?
lean towards that for sure. And
Yes,
getting it
and
out of the
good-
floodplain.
And get this,
The old
get the
adage, you're putting
construction
lipstick on a pig.
plans drawn up and, and we know that's gonna take, what, 6, 8 months for,
Probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
At least we can get going on that.
And hopefully that will give us a more definite estimate to know if what we're working toward.
All right. Everybody in agreement?
Yeah.
Go.
We can skip this one now. Okay. So currently, the budget for the bathrooms in Gypsy Hill Park is about 395. The current apparent low bid is 889.
Wow.
So staff is working with the contractor to see if there's a chance to lower this project cost. I would like some type of direction from you to know how much above the 395 are you willing to go, or is 395 where you want to stop and we'll put it back on the shelf and rebid it in a couple
right.
years?
So tell me what we're doing here. I mean,
We-
I'm
Chris,
confused
explain the
between-
bathroom situation
I would
to
love to
us,
see a
like.
drawing of
Confused
I know
it.
now,
between
baby.
north
I know you
bathrooms
know.
and
The
west.
bathrooms are
All right.
fine that I use, but some.
So we're looking to renovate 2 restrooms and one of those is it's the brick building beside the swimming pool. The other one is at the Kiwanis Field. The one at the west end, all the way at the end of the park, there's a bathroom that sits up on the hill.
Hill.
That one is to be demolished and moved down closer to the picnic shelter. So that's the plan and the price that came in
Oh, that's for.
surprised,
for
I
being-
think, all of us.
I mean,
Looking for ADA improvements, refresh, upgrade
Mhm.
on the 2 that are there now. There's currently 5 restrooms in Gypsy Hill Park.
Okay, go through them.
So we've got where the police substation is.
Yes.
That's a fairly new one. That's maybe 10, 15 years old.
Is it in decent shape?
It's in great shape.
Okay.
The front of that is the police substation. The back
Correct.
is the restroom. They're ADA compliant. The one behind the bandstand was built at the same time. It's ADA compliant and in good shape.
Okay,
So we're only talking about the ones further down through the park toward the west end that are original, built in the 50s.
the one at the ball fields where
So
the
that's
Kiwanis.
the-
Kiwanis, and it connects almost to that concession stand for the
That one's- And
Kiwanis.
people use that all the time.
That one is super
Like-
important.
Yeah.
It
It probably
is, it
gets the
is.
most use out of any,
So that's just a remodel. That's not,
just a refresh and
Right.
ADA accessibility,
Okay.
ADA upgrades. You're not knocking down a lot of walls. You're just remodeling just
Okay.
those 2 that are, the one at the
What-
pool house. The
could,
one
I
at the
mean,
pool house is the least used.
you said could we kind of meet them somewhere? Like you said, we're doing it 394. I mean, call to go to like 450 or whatever and say, or is it this part of this bid process that's still just overinflated because?
Yeah, maybe.
I think the price per square foot was $1,000 and,
No.
and the ones that we're remodeling,
That's right.
they're single stalls on each side, right?
Right.
And it's $270,000. I mean, and the new building to tear down the one and rebuild it was 330,
I
350.
think so. You're right.
So the price
They're
between
trying
the
to press
remodel
up
and the
against the
new,
Wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah, we gotta let this cool down.
and adding heat.
Right. Yep. Electrical too. They're not that large.
So it would be widening the doorway, adding heat, a roof, and new fixtures and
ADA.
and you're talking 3 bathrooms.
2 remodels and a replacement.
So therefore, all of a sudden, the 889 becomes more like
And
250, and 400,000.
I was gonna say,
maybe
that's
not anymore, but,
that's
I
a
mean-
mansion sitting there when you added everything together. Wait, 889.
If we rebid it, it's gonna take a long time.
We
Chris,
combine it
what's
with
your-
anything?
Chris, do we
We
need
had-
do we need the fifth bathroom from a design guideline standpoint or a
Well, we-
distance standpoint?
We talked about that when Jesse and Amanda, we took a tour and rode around. So there are 5 in the park now. Maybe we don't do the one near the pool, which is the least used out of all of them in the park, and demolish that one. And
'cause you got
demolish
that
the
other
other
one
one and
on that-
rebuild a new one. So you'd remodel one, build a new.
We also talked about, is it possible if we were to build a new pool house, to set it in such a way that you could access the
Public-facing-
bathrooms, but the
public-facing
rest of it
bathrooms.
could be closed when
Built when
the
it
pool's not
closed.
in session? Like, could that be your bathroom instead of the one that's down from it? I don't know.
That's a great idea.
It depends on how it's designed and if it's,
Yeah, but is it still, if we do 2 bathrooms, is it still gonna be $1,000 a square foot?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's really the question. That's outrageous.
Yeah, that's,
I think we need to start with talking with the contractor and see where we go from there. And then maybe we,
and then
Eliminate one.
we also thought about,
Then we talked to our Shockey guy and said, we'll give you a twofer. And,
we also, what's I gonna say?
sorry.
I
didn't mean
lost
to-
it.
Well, why don't you go back and
Oh.
revisit it, and we wouldn't mind at all if you'd not bothered to fix the one down there by the bathroom. I mean, by the pool, the bathroom by the pool, and we'll
Knowing that we're gonna have a new
reconsider
pool
that.
house at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah,
so let me ask you this, if we don't remodel the one near the bathroom,
You know the pool.
that would be demolished. That would be.
Eventually, yeah.
So,
We also thought, my thought was we're gonna do Montgomery Hall Park bathrooms and pool house, and what if we combined it with this? Could we get a better economy of scale?
as long as we don't go $1,000 a
I
square
know.
foot. I'd say, look at it.
yeah,
You
we'll
know,
look at all options.
revisit
Yeah,
it.
yeah, we will.
You got new options, and you don't have to rebuild that one beside the pool. And
find them, call the new project and rebid.
Maybe.
And like I said, the combination sounds, like I said,
Maybe it's more
I think we
attractive.
all agree on this.
Okay,
Yeah, that's nuts.
correct.
Yeah,
Go for it.
okay.
We trust you.
Famous last words.
So the bid opening for our new courthouse was Tuesday, and we were all dancing a little happy dance. The bids came in under estimates. We issued the intent to award yesterday to Shockey and Sons. At this point, we would need to issue $20.5 million. I'm proposing a 20-year term at the interest rates have went up some, so it's a little over 3.5% now. Keeping in mind that this still includes a $2.53 million contingency. So this slide, I can give it to you afterwards. I thought we would walk you through it because it could be a little confusing. The base column is the bid that came in, and then there's some estimates for the furniture, the costs that we've already incurred for the architecture and engineering services, and then testing, commissioning, the data and telephone allowance and moving allowance. And then you see the next line is the project contingency. And then project manager, and then we have other expenses down there, the temporary fence signage and a few other smaller things. And then I separated out the cost that are not directly involved in building the courthouse, which is the purchase of the parcel, the alternate bid, because that is the Big Lots building, that is not the construction of the courthouse cost. And then the replacement of the roof of the building that would be staying, and then renovation cost for the building that is there. So I have 3 columns for the 3 different funding sources. What we're gonna fund from the bond issuance and any interest we earned on that bond. When we do the settlement of the bonds, that money goes into a Virginia SNAP account, and it will sit there and earn interest. And you can use that interest towards your project. And then local funding is the middle column, and then our ARPA funding is the last column. So the majority of our project contingency is being funded out of our local funds in hopes that we don't have to spend nearly that amount of money.
Right.
The architect said that once we get above ground, we can greatly reduce that contingency. It's just we have to allow, if we go to dig for the foundation and it's soft ground, they have to dig further down. So once we get above ground, that can be reduced, but at this point, they recommended that we leave it in there. So that's being funded out of local in hopes that we don't have to spend it in the future. And right now we have, what I did is leftover money is on that renovation line there at the bottom for the 1,023,000. That number is a plug. We don't have any idea what that's going to cost. I hope it's not near that. And that's just to use all the local money that we have identified to this point. I'll let you take that in for a second and ask questions if you have any.
So the bond issuance, how much is that? The 21 million,
21.
Yes.
21 million for
Yes.
bonds?
Now you see the 20,500,000 right here. That is after bond issuance costs. That's the net that we need. So the debt that will be issued is 21 million even.
That's for a 20-year.
Yes,
And
So how much is that gonna cost you?
about 1.5 million. And so this is the debt affordability slide. Davenport updated this for us this week. You'll see column B there is our existing city debt. Column C is our school debt. And then column D is the new VRA debt. So column G is currently what is in our general fund budget to fund our debt service. So those first 5 years, we're using our fund balance to pay for the majority of this payment. And when that crossing debt drops off right about 2029, we'll have enough to pay without using our fund balance. So that amount's highlighted in yellow there. That is the lowest point. Our fund balance will get down to like 934,000. And column P shows what we're required to keep in there according to our policies. And so we get as low as within a couple, like 150,000 or so, or maybe 200.
Yes, 20 is 3.66. Dude, what's 15 currently?
15 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have that with me.
Okay.
I had 20, 25, and 30, but we never thought we could get to 15.
I just want to know.
But I can definitely run those numbers and get them to you.
The previous one was when 20 was 3.47, the 15 was 3.07.
Okay. And then this, oh, maybe I don't have it.
3.07. So it's probably gone up a little bit if the other one has, but
Okay.
But we
Yeah.
won't lock in until.
We won't lock in until the bonds are sold May 1st.
right now, and
Now
right, gas and oil's going up, so.
for 15, 307 last time.
Look so far, so.
My guess is we would need another 200,000 to 300,000 to do a 15. Which means our fund balance wouldn't hold us over until the crossing debt fell off and
I
we would
think you
have
should
to.
look at
I
that.
think we should look at it too, because
It just
that's a
seems,
significant, if we can get to
and the total amount you end up
3.1.
paying at the end is so much.
3.1 versus
mean
3.6
for
for
the
20 years.
15-year?
Yeah.
So from dropping to a 30-year term to a 20-year term, it's saving $6.8 million at this principal amount. So
I estimated the savings from a 20 to 15 is about 2.6 additional.
So almost 8 million, 8.5 million if you're talking about the 6
Yeah.
plus the 2.
No, we're not gonna go 30. Forget
Well,
that.
no, I'm saying that.
30 was when it was more horrifying numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
right. So I
Between
mean, we're guaranteed we're gonna take 20 as the worst,
Right.
Right.
but I would be interested in 15.
I would love to see the numbers on that. Yeah.
I
As
feel
long as
like-
it doesn't put us so tight on everything else that we,
Yeah.
you know.
I feel like it would cost us a penny on the real estate rate. And next year we are losing the jail buy-in, which is a little over 2
More than
pennies.
2 pennies.
So, but I will definitely run you the numbers
Run
and
the
send them to
numbers.
you.
We've always erred on the side of caution, and I really think that this is real money.
It is,
It could be a real opportunity. Yeah,
It'd be a great opportunity.
run the numbers.
especially
All
since
right,
we have
all
some
right,
big
let's-
things in our future with public safety buildings and things like that. So yeah, definitely. Okay, so that was the end of things that I had to review. So were there any questions on the budget when you read through it this week, or any questions you have now?
When, it's not really part of the budget, but when, how long before you can lock down Mr. Shockey and everything?
The intention award was posted yesterday.
Right, but I mean, like, when does, like, he sign on the dotted line, we sign
I
on the
think we need
dotted
a
line?
week and a
or-
half
At least next week.
for the week and a half to 2 weeks before the contract is signed, I believe.
But we don't have to vote on that.
No,
That's
you do
yours.
not. That's correct.
Right.
But we are trying to plan the groundbreaking, kind of the ceremonial groundbreaking. So we'll do all about that.
Cause when is the,
So
what
the
the judge said?
April 18th,
April 18th, okay.
but we were looking at like the 16th maybe, if you want to look at your calendars for that, since we're talking about JDR. So, but we'll get in touch with you all about that. When we're going to be working, and Josh is going to be working with their PR person at Shockey. They've got some,
16th is a Tuesday?
it is a
Mhm.
Yeah,
Tuesday.
'cause I knew 15th was Monday.
Okay, so
Tax
just as long as
day,
it's
yeah.
by the 18th.
Correct.
So I'm sorry, and this is just for information, and I have no expertise in this, but when you're making decisions on, with department heads on positions that will not be funded, clearly these aren't positions that are essential. These are just requests.
Depends on who you ask.
It depends on who you ask, of
Yeah,
course.
The department
But
manager
just,
definitely thinks it's essential.
Yeah, the department
Yes.
manager thinks it's essential, and I'm sure that you and Mr. Venn discuss these things.
Mhm.
But just as I think about it, does not funding, and I'm just throwing this out to think about, does not funding future positions affect current staffing, people who are feeling perhaps stressed?
We try to
because
be
of
aware
current
of that
thing? Yeah.
and take the amount of money we have available
Yeah.
and make the
Yeah,
decision.
no, it's not an easy decision, so.
In this case, we had to do the most critical ones, which
Yeah.
is near the deputy city
Right.
engineer position, is probably the biggest one in the list for next year that we felt was the most critical, given everything we've talked about with the CIP tonight and all the projects that are going to be happening now and will be coming forward. So, yeah. It's really hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm sure you go over every single detail.
We'll have another work session at your work session next week. We have, you go to the next, oh, you are at the next slide. Sorry. We also have the joint work session with the schools. I just want to clarify where we're meeting on the, for the work session. Okay, perfect. We'll meet in the caucus room and then we'll take a break and we'll move the work session back into chambers for the rest of the work session items. So that's totally fine. Yeah, it's no problem from Kylie's perspective for the tech. We've done it before, so we're good.
Suggestion?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering. What you all think about maybe inviting them to eat with us so we can have a combined dinner, school board and city.
I'll leave that up to you all.
And we'll be eating, right? I imagine.
Yes, we will be, there will be dinner next week. Yes.
Just a suggestion. I know we'll,
So how long from 5 to what is their session and then?
So I think we have another hour after we're done with them about,
We won't
so
eat during
there's
that.
So what will
won't
we
eat
be doing in an
5.
hour? We have a couple of items.
DEI, yes, ma'am. The DEI discussion about the continuation of the commission, and then we'll have our own budget work session, and then dinner will happen right after that.
I mean, if they want to stay around, I have no problem with that.
I'm sorry, we
Yes.
So the meeting is 5 to.
Yeah, let me
the-
look-
the
let me look
budget-
at the-
Yeah, I'm
Let me
sorry.
look at, that's okay.
Yeah,
I
if
can
it's
pull up
not-
the
if
schedule.
it's not
super
feasible, then
quick.
obviously,
No, I'll just, let me walk you through it real quick.
but I don't want to say, okay, y'all get out because we're about to.
Yeah,
We're
so-
gonna eat, y'all get out.
So the meeting starts at 5. So the joint work session with the schools is first. That should wrap
Oh,
up
I
around
see.
5:30. We'll take a quick break and then we have a discussion of the establishment of the DEI commission and then our own budget work session. And I'm projecting that we'll be done around 6:30, 6:35 for dinner.
And that's when, okay,
So
so
we'll
it's not,
take
ri-
our-
it's
yeah.
not right after.
No.
Okay,
No, it's not right
No.
now.
So we have
Alrighty.
we have a couple of items.
It might not
Do
be
we,
practical.
do we have a
then.
closed session?
No, sir. No.
So if they're still here, I mean,
If
You're
they,
welcome.
if they want to
I mean-
listen to
Yeah,
the
but it may not,
DEI.
that's not practical. I
Welcome
thought it
to
was we were
meander for an
having the
hour.
meeting, dinner.
Yeah,
and
they
then-
usually go first for
Okay.
obvious reasons.
Righty.
So is that a no?
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah,
doesn't seem
fe-
feasible.
feasible-
but-
yeah, feasibility wise,
If
it's
they don't
tough.
want to sit around for 45 minutes.
Questions for us?
Leslie, on the Valley Community Services request, did we ever get clarification on the status of funding they received from the state for the crisis?
I haven't seen anything. We can check on that again though and
Okay.
report back.
That'd be
Next
interesting
week.
to hear.
You're talking about the big dollars, like the 26 million they were.
Yeah.
And Jesse, when you look at that 15-year and you break that down, Leslie was mentioning, obviously you said a penny, she said 2 cents.
Oh, that was on the jail.
For the,
Oh,
yeah.
the
the
jail.
650 increase or.
Okay.
Yeah.
5
She
increase.
was talking about the jail buyout too. So that's about 2 pennies. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
Jesse's right. I think
Unless
it's-
our revenue goes up.
Yeah,
Well, it will be an assessment year next year too, so that will help some.
I mean, as long as revenue continues to grow, we're all right. I mean, that-
Depends
That's
on
the
the,
key.
depends on the cost of bathrooms.
And bathrooms.
We're going back outside.
Any other questions?
Anybody got any? I did read something interesting in here, and it says that we are allowed to tap our reserves to cover any type of court or state mandated obligations.
getting back to that 287,000.
I'm not.
He's thinking
I'm-
JDI.
No, no, the
court steps
16
state
point.
I'm
mandate.
saying-
That's interesting.
I'm saying that we have 16.5% in reserves in some of these places. And we are allowed to touch that if the state mandates that we have to do something, which is where we are with the courthouse.
I'd rather pay ourselves back. Yeah.
So
Oh, so borrow it from ourselves and pay ourselves back, and that
Yeah.
way we ain't gotta pay interest.
that's my point. I'm trying to borrow as little money as possible
Oh,
to
yeah.
keep the payment down. And all it says is we can borrow it. And we can, as long as we get it back to the 15% in 3 years.
3 years.
Well, that's my point, because I mean, we're kicking the ball down the.
Jesse's
road.
having a heart attack up there.
Yes, I
3
know.
years.
You see it's over there, it's
Well,
like-
that would, that
No,
would, that
no,
would, just-
but I mean, for instance, there could be 500,000 that we wouldn't have to borrow. There could be $1 million we wouldn't have to borrow if that would make a difference of getting us to a 15-year rate.
what a fun exercise you could have with this, Jesse.
Hmm.
And all
Yeah.
I'm saying is,
Or using it for
we-
the water.
we are so scared that, oh my golly, I might have to spend some money in a regional jail in 3 years. Yes, yes, we might have to do that. I'm not denying that, but we have to look at this as, we have to react today. And if we have 16.5% in a fund that is never going to be touched, why can't we access it in the short run?
And you do have money sitting in a jail reserve that you could reclassify for the courthouse and reduce your borrowing.
I like this lady. She comes up with things I haven't even thought of.
I would do that before I would do what you just said.
There's
for
about
sure.
700 and some
Yeah,
thousand
That's,
that's
yeah,
sitting there.
that's a great point. Cause there's not talking of expansion anymore.
Tell me what that, whoa, tell me what
So-
that's about.
Yeah.
So 2-3 years ago,
Yeah.
when there were jail expansion talks were happening, we set
Right.
aside $1 million.
Right.
Now, we did tap into it when we were doing some of this early, the purchasing of the parcel and things like that for the courthouse. But we've left a little over 700,000 in that jail reserve.
Because we're not talking expansion now.
We're not talking expansion, and their 5-year CIP is being funded from their own fund balance. So
Okay.
we don't see any,
Well, then there
significant
you
needs
go.
from
That's
us.
700,000 right there. It's more than a 500,000 we're talking about.
Yes, I recall you told us about the 700,000 right before you told us about the 1.7 million for the pool. house.
yeah, because that is
Like,
what I,
yay. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, because we could also use it for the pool. I mean,
there's a lot of things
it's
we can
there.
use it for.
and there is no immediate need for it for the jail.
I love the idea of using some money that we don't have to pay interest on.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, It would
So
it
I-
would be good to know what an option.
I can run
Would be-
you multiple scenarios, like using that.
I like that idea. Run it,
Okay.
please.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
and
totally
let's
with
try, let's see what we can do to get to this 15.
Okay.
I think
We'll
that
put some
15,
scenarios together.
yeah,
Now, we will have to make that decision pretty
quick,
soon,
Yeah.
quick. Well, we
because I have
understand
to
that.
let VRA know a final number and term.
Right.
But I can get you that information
What date?
probably tonight or first thing in the morning.
Okay. When do you have to know?
so,
I think the absolute deadline was the 19th, but they kind of don't want us to wait till the 19th.
Okay. Oh,
Okay, yeah,
I
well
mean,
ahead.
get-
Well, after the
Tomorrow's
meeting.
Friday, right?
Tomorrow's Friday.
Yeah, get it by,
You
get it by
retired
Monday.
people.
Yeah.
You're
it's a
absolutely right.
weekend.
And I just want to go back to one slide
Yep.
real quick before we leave. So you see that our debt fund balance, this is starting out at about $4.6 million at the end of this year.
Yes,
So that increase in revenue that we would need to fund this debt service, it wouldn't have to be immediate, but it would have to be probably in about FY 27, 28. I mean, so we'll keep that in mind too. If we really wanted to push for 15, we wouldn't have to immediately cover that, but because our debt fund balance would take us through the first couple of years for sure. But around 27, 28, we would have to bump up our contribution to the debt fund balance from our general fund.
and of course, nobody here is a guru who can figure out what's going to happen to the economy. But the way things have grown in the last 3 years, I mean, we stand an excellent chance in 3 more years of having
Yes.
200 more apartments occupied in the city. We're going to have more population. We're going to have more taxes. We're going to have,
And you see in FY 30, that's the biggest drop. There is another drop, but it comes a few years after that. But yeah, we can run those numbers and I'll have them to you.
be great.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
All right.
A lot of work. Thank
Any
you,
other
Joe.
questions? And
Well,
we'll get all this
I
prepared for
got-
next week.
I got one comment I'm gonna make real quick, as long as I got Chris Tuttle here.
Should have left him a chance.
You know, ever since I've been on this council, I've been a big advocate for golf course. And I get constantly abused about the amount of money I wasted on golf carts. For once, I'd like to set the record straight because I went back and I dug out the budget from 2020. And the reality of the matter is, in 2020, membership, greens fees, and cart fees totaled $102,000. And we realized that the reason we were doing so poorly out there on the golf course is because we didn't have any carts. So we stood up and said, we need some carts, and we bought $200,000 worth of carts, which is a fleet of 40, which did not cost us 200,000 because we sold the old ones we had and made back about 40,000. So in reality, we spent about 160,000. Today's budget for the same three items that generated $102,000 in revenue in 2020, today's budget is going to generate $255,000 per year.
If that's your pipe and smoke it.
The membership has gone up by $20,000 a year. The greens fees have gone up by $55,000 a year. The cart fees have gone up by $78,000 a year for a $153,000 increase per year. And these are low estimates because I went out to the golf course last Friday and talked to Wes. And on a month that we had terrible weather, March, with rain and terrible conditions and lack of play, they still turned in more revenue than the average. In other words, if you take the $255,000 that's going to be generated this year and figure that out by 10 months, because basically January and February are a loss. Well, you're talking, you should be generating $25,000 a month in order to come up with $255,000, correct? I know I'm talking numbers. Last month, they deposited $30,000 in the bank in a bad month. Just think what's going to happen when we get to a good month of May and June. Everybody benefits, folks, and it was an investment that I'm sick and tired of hearing negative comments around the city. And I hope everyone on this dais realizes that it was an investment.
Sometimes you have to spend money to make money.
And just like if we fix the pool house, we're going to get more money coming in because that's a great swimming pool we have out there at the park. And, you know, we are going to continue to bring more people to our city who like it, and they're going to spend money on the way in and out of town. So we can't look at it like we can't do that because it's too much money. We've got to look at what's good for this city. And I know that my baseball field thing is a pipe dream, and I'm certainly not getting any assistance from Mary Baldwin to make the baseball field bigger. And we tried, and we're going to try again on Monday with the Braves to see what we can get there. But we got to see what we can do, and we cannot turn our back on something and say, I'm not going to spend any more money on that. We got to keep going and keep our interest expenses as low as possible and keep generating, because this city's coming back. We're going to make it. And I just want everybody to realize that all is not lost, and it's not a woe is me because we have to approve a $148 million budget. And I appreciate the fact that it's less than last year because we've never had a budget that's gone down, I don't believe. Not that I've seen. One other thing I want
Cut
to,
anything. That was
one other
capital.
thing I did want to check, if you all will look on page 71
Oh,
of your books,
I don't have that book here.
you will see that if you go down this first column of the tax rate per 100, you will see that in 1990, you were at $1.10. You will see a steady decrease. You got to, in 2007, you got to 90 cents for a couple of years. We're currently at 89. So that, therefore, you can honestly say that you have the lowest tax rate that the city has seen in the last 35 years, which is good.
That's what we were saying.
Yeah.
We should have been at 86. But
You know,
Yeah.
that's credit, man.
Yeah. But we're also in the bottom 20% in the state. We have one of the lowest.
Which is good.
Yeah, let's stop him there.
because I couldn't hear with all the left. So, we're on page 110.
Okay.
71.
It was
I
at
apologize.
it was at $1.
It was at $1.10 in 1990. It's all the way down to 89 cents. It's the lowest it's ever been in 35 years. Job well done. Now, my point that I've always tried to make here is we got to be competitive. We must be aware that we are a portion of the Staunton, Augusta, Waynesboro group. Waynesboro is at 77 cents. Augusta County is cutting theirs to 52 cents. So there is the opportunity for somebody in Staunton when they go to relocate or build a new house or move, get out of an apartment. Are they going to stay in Staunton and pay 89 cents, or are they going to go to Augusta County and get, be able to pay a much lower rate?
And build a septic system.
And build a sewer system, and also have to pay gasoline prices to commute back into the city to get all your basic functions. We understand there's a trade-off, but I just want to tell you what some of the other areas are doing around us. Harrisonburg is at 96 cents. They went through a tough time period because they had to build a second high school, and they had to stop construction on it for about a year during COVID because of the money drying up when all the JMU students left town. So they're struggling. Rockingham County is 68 cents. Charlottesville is 96 cents. Albemarle County is 85 cents. Lexington is 92 cents. Rockbridge is 61 cents. So you can see the counties are most significantly lower. We are pretty much competitive with the cities in our area, but we are significantly higher than Waynesboro.
They have the second lowest city tax rate in the entire state, behind Williamsburg, which has the tourism benefit.
And I asked,
About Waynesboro.
That's what I said. Waynesboro has the second lowest city tax rate in
I
the
thought you
entire
were saying
state.
we
yeah,
were.
however, they
Where
get
are we?
you.
We're
Yeah.
4 or 5. We're near the
We're
bottom.
low. We're
Yeah.
low.
Well, actually, I asked Jesse to do a direct comparison for a medium price house with sewer, water, own a couple cars in Waynesboro, and at 0.77, you still pay about 8% more overall for apples to apples comparison. So it feels like a little bit of a shell game there because they raised everything else. And
Their
lowered
water,
that.
their sewer, everything.
Their water, their sewer, their property tax.
In their property tax, 290, just like ours. I thought they were identical. though.
The direct comparison for that was saying you have two cars worth a total of about 25,000. It was based on our median home price. It was based on the same usage of water and sewer, and you come out paying about 8% more in Waynesboro.
Yes.
'Cause
Overall,
it-
we're cheaper because we have much cheaper utilities,
True.
even with the increase.
And I think this water thing, I don't think there's gonna be much complaint up here on this dais. I
Not
mean,
if it's been that long.
it's a necessary thing. And I hope we never go 12 years again.
Yeah, sewer
with ignoring
especially.
something.
One thing we had talked about before, and I know I brought it up in 2x2, was with Michelle there, would be in an ongoing way. We know we have to do something about it. It's not funding itself, would be that year after year, the idea is brought up to say, well, published inflation was 1.7 or whatever the previous year. Do we want to raise it that? And that's a very defendable choice, I feel, on that, because in this point, after how many years of not raising it, we're very much behind. So it would be something to look at incrementally.
And we're gonna have a public hearing on that next week.
Yes, on the 11th.
I was thinking, suggesting maybe a non-assessment years. Assessment year.
Oh, yeah,
Already so much.
That's
Yeah,
a
I
smart
get
idea.
I
Right.
can't imagine you
Yeah.
raising, water,
Yeah, at
utilities,
the
that kind
same
of stuff. The
time.
same year you're
True,
jacking up.
yeah, everything all
that's-
at once.
that's-
Sewer needed an
insidious.
increase last year, but it was not a good year to ask.
Correct.
But the sewer fund has come to the point where it's insolvent. I mean,
Correct.
the operating revenue does not cover the operating expenses and debt.
So crazy.
I like that idea going on non-assessment years. Yeah, that's excellent.
For the presentation, I guess that's gonna proceed the public hearing. Can we just make sure it shows the big picture of where we need to get to and not just a snapshot of what we're doing this year?
So
I
like a
just-
5-year
And
outlook.
understand.
So they know
Okay.
that this is going to be a work in progress.
But I still say, and now I know I speak the game, but I still say that we need to be cognizant of our poor clientele that we have in the city. You know, a lot of us are blessed that can afford that, but there are a lot of people that, you know, you say, well, it's not very much. Like I said, I've got people that can't afford 50-cent prescriptions.
Oh, we didn't talk about the,
So, you know, I mean, we need to just be cognizant of the fact we need to walk a tightrope. You know, if you want to try to say, well, it's not very much, well, we can raise this. Well, yes, you can raise some, but you got to be cognizant of the people that cannot afford for their home or that they're renting because the landlords are going to raise it on them too. I mean, I get it, what you're trying to do. I'm just simply saying there are people, it breaks
got
my
it.
heart
We got it.
when we're not, you know, we're making it tough on people, some people.
Mark, I agree 100%, but you got to look at the long game because I feel if you're not on top of it, those people are going to be in even worse shape if we don't do our job and stay on top of basic
Oh,
services.
do our job, Adam, yeah, but I guarantee you, the people that can't afford to put food on the table, gas in the car and pay their bill,
I
they're
know,
gonna be a little
it's-
ticked off. when
But
you
it's
raise
going to
it.
be, if we don't do anything, it's going to be worse on them in 20 years.
Well, I'm just simply telling you.
Yeah, the can has been kicked for over a decade.
I
Yes.
get it. I get what you're saying, but there's still, you gotta put people, you gotta put gas in the
understand.
car
We
and food on the
understand.
table and a roof over your head now, not 20 years down the road.
so what are you saying? It's not feasible now to raise the sewer and water?
No,
No, he's just saying we need to be responsible and walk that fine line.
will
of
be.
Yeah,
what's-
and we do, and I
what's
agree with that
reasonable and what's too
approach.
much.
Yeah,
Right,
I agree with
what's
that approach.
reasonable. Right, we're not gonna,
Just keep everybody in mind, because you know, we've got a lot of people on the high and low, so.
we do, and we
Yeah.
got a lot of people that's unsheltered.
And I will say, and I thank my council mates. And Alice and I talked about it, and I thank my council mates for what we're hoping we're gonna do in this budget to
So
help.
we didn't talk about that part.
Yeah.
Was we supposed to
Well,
talk
we-
about that?
Yeah, well, it was in my presentation last week, the $50,000, that's kind of in the contingency for city council. Council could decide, you know, what you would like to fund in terms of nonprofits, in terms of
Right,
assistance. And if that's part of the budget, then we would come back to you all with a kind of a procedure as to how to
Right.
utilize those funds and
Yeah.
kind of some.
and I'm
criteria.
excited about that, and I
Yeah,
thank
so that
everybody
could
for
actually
listening.
help with what Councilmember Robertson is
It's more
saying, to say if
structured,
you want
yeah.
to provide funds to agencies that provide utility assistance, and
Right,
we can get more information on that too, in terms of.
Yes,
what
our
those
two
different
main
resources
agencies
are.
that we refer people to are Salvation
Yeah,
Army
we'll-
and
we'll-
Sacra.
We'll get that information pulled
Correct.
together if that would be helpful, but yeah.
Right, and Sacra just does stand,
In Augusta County,
Augusta County, yeah. They
Okay.
don't do Waynesboro. so-
correct.
right.
Good organization.
And Salvation Army is a good.
Anything further?
So will that be in the work session next week or
Will what be in the work session?
that
Contingency fund.
contingency?
It's in the budget now. You all
Okay.
just either decide to keep it in and you do nothing. If you want it in, you do nothing.
Okay,
If you want to, but if there's, you know, so I'm hearing right now, you do want to keep it in, so there's nothing to do further on
Okay.
that. It's in the
And you
budget.
guys just got to
Okay.
propose some guidelines.
We'll
of
do that
how
after the budget's is adopted. Yeah, we'll come back with you and I'll get with Mr.
Is
Blair
there-
about that.
Is everybody up here on the dais in favor of leaving it in the budget?
Yeah. so
Absolutely.
I'm fine with leaving it in the budget, but is it an item that will come back to council before, like, when the agencies are decided? Or is that something that's just a line item that's gonna be there that staff will decide?
Well, it won't be there until July 1.
Yeah.
And
Right.
by that time, then.
We'll have a policy
we-
in
we
place for
can-
you
That's what I'm
all.
at.
Yeah.
It's
That's
gonna
what
have to
I'm
be in a
asking.
memorandum.
Mhm.
Right.
It'll be
Yeah.
one of
That's
your
what I'm
council
asking.
procedures that you
Yeah.
have, that
Yeah.
list of.
I originally wanted it in there sooner so people would could get some money to pay for their winter heating bills and that kind of stuff. That's what I was really worried about at the time, but
so we put it in, can somebody come along and take it out?
No,
Okay,
you mean
all right. I was
somebody,
just
by who-
making
no,
sure.
you all
It's
will,
just-
you all will make the decisions as to how those funds are allocated.
And that will continue on
Well, a future
years.
council,
Future
But
councils could
that's what I'm saying.
decide to keep it in or take it out. or-
Oh, that's what
yeah.
I was,
Mhm.
I
yeah,
didn't say.
it's not,
that's what
it's
I
not
was
in
talking about.
perpetuity.
You could also decide to carry it over. If there's funds left over, you could decide as part of an amendment, okay, there's 25,000 left. We want to carry it over to the next fiscal year so that you could make decisions like that in the future. Mm,
Yeah, it'd be in every year's budget.
Sure. If future councils decide to keep it in, correct.
Anything further from members of council? I want to thank Jesse for a outstanding presentation
Thank
and
you. Thank you.
getting it all straight in our heads.
Yeah.
And don't forget, April, was it 25th approaches?
Yes. If you all have further questions, please don't hesitate to email myself and Jesse before, if you have questions that come up after tonight and you think of something, let us know. Yep.
And then you get back to us by Monday or so with,
I'm not waiting that late.
all right, you stay up all night, go
Good
ahead.
night.
No, she's not staying up. all
No,
night.
she's already running.
We have not
numbers.
celebrated the JDR.
Can't wait to dig in there and figure it all out.
All right.
Run some
I absolutely
spreadsheets.
love doing this, so.
Thank you.
Any closing comments from anybody?
No, I didn't.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.